Hi, welcome to this edition of Digital Discoveries. Today we're going to be talking to elementary students about using social media. And so a lot of times we think that talking to students about social media, that should be something that we should be talking to our older students about, maybe our middle school students or our high school students. But really, that conversation about using social media, using the internet properly should start at the elementary level. So we're going to talk about some of the reasons that we would want to talk to our students in the elementary level about using social media and how to use it properly. So this is of course, the conversation is, what is social media? What is that all about? What is social media? Why do our kids need to know about it? Now, I know a lot of people just kind of associate social media with Facebook, but really there's a whole lot of different services that connect people together. Facebook is one of them for sure, probably the most famous, but there's also Twitter and YouTube and all these different blogs. Even Google has a space where students can get together. And actually we want to encourage students to get together, but we want to encourage students to get together properly on the internet. We want them to get together and use the internet properly. And so this is kind of where that conversation needs to go, especially with our little ones, because they're going to learn from their peers about how to use social media properly if we don't tell them. So if they don't get that, if they don't start getting that message early, then they're going to get it from their peers, and their peers may not be the best teachers on how to use social media. So I want to give a shout out to Deborah McCallum. She was the blogger and that gave me the idea for this particular episode. Now Deborah has a really good website called Big Ideas in Education. Again, I hope that all of you out there are reading other people's blogs, other educators' blogs. There's lots and lots of really good blogs out there, and Deborah's is actually one of the better ones, Big Ideas in Education blog. So look that up. There's the way to get to it. It's on edublogs.org. So thanks again for Deborah for inspiring me to talk to you about this one. So, okay. So in Deborah's blog entry, she actually said that there are some reasons that we need to talk to students about social media. And so we're going to talk about some of those reasons. We're not going to talk about all of them. We're going to talk about some of the reasons that we need to talk to our students about social media at a very early age. Not wait until middle school, not wait till high school to start having this conversation. The first thing we need to let our students know from a very early age is that the internet is forever. And what that means is that once it's posted online, it stays online forever. And you've probably heard stories of people putting pictures up online that they later took down, but it was too late. Once it's posted up online, it stays online. It can get disseminated. Students need to understand that no matter what they put up online, that it stays there forever. And so they're representing their school or they're representing their family. I always tell my kids, what's the grandma test? Would you put something up online that grandma would approve of? If grandma wouldn't approve of it, then don't put it up online, because the internet is forever. Once you post it up there, it's there forever. Another reason that we want to start having this discussion with kids about the internet and social media is that our definition of privacy is changing. Privacy is different now than it was a few years ago. We've all heard the phrase, or I hope you've heard the phrase, that there's no such thing as privacy anymore, that everything that we do is being posted up online. A lot of people are putting their most intimate details of their lives up online. If they blow their nose, they put it on Facebook. If they have a cold, they put it on Facebook. If they've gone to the store, they put it to somewhere, they tweet about it. And so that definition of those things that we used to keep very private to ourselves is changing completely. And that goes back to that first slide about the internet is forever. And so those things that we used to keep private to ourselves, it's now almost kind of expected that you're sharing that with the world. And some things are shareable, some things are not shareable, and that's a conversation to have with our students. What are the things that we should be sharing online? What's appropriate? What's inappropriate? Again, if they don't get the information from us, they're going to be getting it from somewhere, or that knowledge base from somewhere, and they might be getting it from people that might have incorrect or inappropriate information. So it's up to us to give our students that roadmap to drive by. So privacy is different. It's changing completely. The meaning of friends is changing. Back in the old days, friends were those 2 or 3 people that you played with. Those were your friends. These are our friends, or maybe our classmates. Those were our friends. I use this picture here of these 3 kids playing, making a tent in the front room of their house. Those were their friends. Maybe our siblings were our friends. Well, now that definition of friends is completely changing. You get up on social media and you want to be friended, and some students try to get as many friends as possible. So they might have 1,000 friends. They might have 1,500 friends. Justin Bieber on Twitter has something like millions and millions of friends. Well, that definition of friendship is completely changing, because there's no way that you could possibly know all those friends online the way that we would know our friends here, like in this picture. And so that whole idea of what is a friend, what isn't a friend, that's changing. And so our students need to understand that when we say, he's my friend online might be different than my friend that lives next door to me, or my friend in my classroom. And so that whole definition of friends is changing. And so our students need to understand that as well. They need to understand that a friend online may not act the same way toward them that their best friend would, or their friend that they're very close with would. And so I think that our students need to understand that just because they're friends online doesn't mean that they're going to treat them the same way, especially friends that they've never ever met. We want students to critically think about content. And this is something that social media has allowed anybody to put almost anything up online that's might be appropriate, might not be appropriate. I want to show you a very kind of a famous example of where students may not be thinking critically about content. And this might be a little disturbing to a few people, but I wanted to show it to you as an example of what our students might run into online. So I'm going to pop out of this presentation real quick and go to this website. So students might be asked to do something like a report on Martin Luther King, for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, or Black History Month, or something like that. They might be asked to do some kind of report. And so this website is called martinlutherking.org. And so our students, if they don't have those critical thinking skills, might look at this. And by the way, this website consistently comes up on Google as one of the top 10 hits for Martin Luther King when looking for Martin Luther King Jr. information. And so one would think that this is, just looking at it, might have some good information. They might click in there. It's got a Martin Luther King educational video. You might think, oh, that's kind of interesting. And so if you didn't look critically, and we didn't teach our students to look critically at that, they might think that this is actual true information. When in fact, I want to show you, I want to scroll down to the very bottom down here. If you look at this, this thing right there, if you notice down at the very bottom, it has some stuff. Download these flyers to pass out at your school. Well, that sounds like a pretty cool thing. If I was a student doing a Martin Luther King Jr. report, I want to download a flyer to pass out at my school. But if our students aren't thinking critically about what's there, then we might be very, very surprised by some of these websites. This particular website is hosted by Stormfront. Now, a student may not think to click on the hosted by Stormfront. And so they might think that the information on this website is valid. But I'm going to click on hosted by Stormfront, and I want to show you who it is that's hosting this website. This website, stormfront.org, which was hosting that Martin Luther King Jr. site, is actually a hate group. It's a racist hate group, which is inappropriate for our students. It's kind of information that they're just not good. They're not good. And so when our students would start digging through the Martin Luther King Jr., martinlutherking.org website, they might find hate speech. They might find the stuff that comes from Stormfront about what they think about Martin Luther King Jr. Now, that kind of information might be good when we're talking in a class in high school, when we can talk about points of view, we can talk about things like that, we can talk about political parties, things like that. But if a student is in an elementary school and they're looking at this, they might look at that and think that that is valid information, when in fact it is not valid information. So one of the things that we want our students to do is to be able to think critically about information, because social media allows anybody to say anything about anyone at any time. It might be true, it might be false, it might be hate, it might be evil. We have to be able to tell our students that there's lots of different ways that people can express themselves online, and we have to be able to teach them how to pull out what's true, what's false, what's hate, what's not hate. So that Martin Luther King site is a good example of that. And we want our students to think critically about content. Social media allows unfiltered content all over the place. Another reason we want to talk to our kids about social media is that we want them to use their devices wisely. I've said this before a long, long time. Our kids are using all kinds of different devices. There was a survey that just came out this week, as a matter of fact, that said that half of the teenagers in the U.S., have an iPhone. Think about that. That's an amazing statistic. Well, if you know that half have an iPhone, there's a whole bunch that have smartphones in the elementary schools as well. We want them to use their devices wisely. A friend of mine, Kevin Honeycutt, and I've said this before, Kevin Honeycutt has this great analogy that the internet is this huge buffet of knowledge. It's this giant buffet of knowledge. And our students are eating the napkins at this giant buffet of knowledge because no one's showing them where the meat and potatoes and the vegetables and the good stuff to eat are. Students will get onto YouTube and they'll kind of automatically go to the silly stuff on YouTube, the napkins of YouTube, when in fact YouTube has some of the greatest material. National Geographic, the Library of Congress, Smithsonian, there's NASA, there's all kinds of great content up on YouTube. We want to steer our teachers that way, steer our students that way. We want them to use their devices wisely. And so if we start teaching them at the elementary level to use the devices wisely, that'll extend up into the middle school and high school levels. We also want to teach our students good digital citizenship. Again, social media allows anybody to say anything about anyone, anywhere. And so again, we go back to that grandma test. Can our students, would they put it up online? Anything they put up online, would grandma approve of it? If grandma wouldn't approve of it, then we don't put it up online. We have to teach our students how to become good digital citizens. If they find something negative online, they turn that off, they get away from it, they move away from it, they don't automatically respond to it. So we want to teach our students to be good digital citizens, because social media is the town square of the 21st century. That's where everybody gathers electronically. And so how to behave in that town square is a very important thing. Another reason we want to do this is that good habits, as everyone knows, start at an early age. If we teach our students to wash their hands after they go to the restroom, then they'll do that for the rest of their lives. They'll wash their hands before after they go to the restroom or before they eat or something like that. That'll stay with them for the rest of their lives. Comb their hair in the morning, all those things that we teach our students to do, those habits that we hope they'll stay with them for the whole rest of their lives. We teach them at a very early age to be that way. And so if we teach our students good habits on social media, that hopefully those habits will stay with them throughout their lives. And so we got to start at an early age, because sometimes if we wait too late to do that, those habits have already been learned from other students, or they've been learned from inappropriate sources, and we have bad things happen. We don't want that to happen in our school district. We don't want that to happen with our students. What we want our students to have good habits when they're using social media. So that's talking to our elementary students about social media. I hope that these are just some starting points that, that you can use with your students. Again, I'd like to thank I thank our blogger for giving us the inspiration to do this, and I hope that you guys will start having that conversation with your students. It can be very informal. It doesn't have to be a lesson per se, but if we're using social media with our students, and they will start using social media, I promise you that, we want to give them those good habits. Once they're online, we want to teach them good online habits. So thanks for joining me for this episode of Digital Discoveries. We're going to see you next time and practice those good social media habits.